Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Fine Disaster. This is Battlefield 1, and in today's episode of Battlefield Bootcamp, we're going to be taking a closer look at the Bayonet gadget in Battlefield 1. We're going to be looking at the strengths and weaknesses that you will have or encounter when using this gadget, as well as which guns and classes, as well as combat roles are best suited for equipping this gadget, and when you should really be using it. Before we get into the specific topic of today's video, I want to just give a quick clarification on what Battlefield Bootcamp is, given that this is the first time that this has showed up on my channel. It is basically a series or heading under which I'm going to title most of my tips and tricks, guides, videos, things where I explore game mechanics in the current Battlefield franchise or Battlefield games, and explore them, explain them, and of course then hopefully in the comments debate them. Starting with the bayonet itself then, the bayonet obviously has one function, that is stabbing somebody right in the chest. And this can be highly amusing, be this from somewhere across the map where you just sprint through the entire street just to stab somebody right in the face, or if you come up from behind and drive your bayonet in their back. It is certainly amusing, but there is also a number of practical appliances to this bayonet charge besides having fun. Not that that is of course not important. Now first and foremost, the bayonet charge allows you to kill somebody maybe a little bit further away who would maybe turn around and kill you if you try to fire at them from a distance, so you can just get up in their grill and stab them, and one shot kill them. That is to say, one stab kill them. Now this is a small advantage. The true advantage is when you use this on something like a sentry, some form of heavier special unit class in Battlefield 1, like the flamethrower or like the heavy machine gun. These can be very difficult to kill with regular weapons, as per se they'll just turn around and end you because there's no way you will be able to do enough damage no matter what magazine you have before they will notice and turn around and kill you. However, they are a one stab kill to say. So if you just charge an enemy sentry, an enemy flamethrower, you will take them down no matter their health if you manage to get there. So the best way to actually taking down these special unit classes is to get behind them and then charge them. So using a bayonet allows you to keep your enemy's special units in check, and this is why I like to run with a bayonet. It's a tactical advantage over the enemy team with their special units, special soldiers, super soldiers that you can take out in a very effective method if you can sneak up behind them. Another advantage of the bayonet, besides the fun and the tactics of taking out the higher tier infantry units in Battlefield 1, is of course getting to cover. If you're trying to cross the street and you've realized you're taking fire and you may not make it in the normal sprint speed, you can of course charge to the safety. Now you may not be able to move very quickly afterwards, but from the safety of your cover, you can wait for the charge effects to dissipate, regenerate health, and then engage your enemy once more. This is another advantage of the bayonet charge, and it's a new mechanic to Battlefield 1 that I myself still find needing to properly learn and embrace in difficult situations, because this can actually save your ass if used correctly. Now those are the main advantages of using a bayonet. What about the disadvantages, or should I say supposed disadvantage? Because apparently what I've read in a number of articles and even seen on some larger YouTubers' YouTube channels is that the bayonet causes increased recoil and increased ADS time, that is aiming down sight from any kind of sprinting running position, hip fire position if you so will. And in my tests that I will be showing you today, I actually wasn't able to find any kind of proof of such effects. And frankly, it would surprise me if they were to any realizable effect being put in the game. The whole point of having the simpler attachment system in Battlefield 1 is to reduce the complexity for new players. The bayonet doesn't have a description in Battlefield 1 that states something down the line of when equipped will make your weapon harder to control. It doesn't say anything of that nature, and as such it would really surprise me if DICE has added some kind of secret disadvantage to using the bayonet that is hardly noticeable. And as such, my tests also seem rather evident in what they show, in that it makes sense what they are showing. Starting then off with the supposed draw time. This is in this case switching from the secondary to primary. You will see on the left a gun with a bayonet, and on the right a gun without the bayonet, and you will see that there is no noticeable difference between the two, at least not to my eyes. If I'm seeing something wrong, feel free to leave it down below in the comments. Also regarding recoil patterns, in this case done with the MP18, no noticeable difference, at least not to my eye. In the case of the version with the bayonet, you actually have me firing right next to the previous pattern from the gun without the bayonet, so you can see that they actually mix up all the way into one in the end, because there is so little difference that because I've placed them right next to each other, you can't really see the difference. There is seemingly no increased recoil, and I should point out at this point that I did not control the recoil on the MP18 when doing this test. I just pressed mouse button 1 and let the gun go wherever it wanted to go, to not in some way or shape or form impact the results by some kind of recoil control that may not always be the same amount depending on how skilled I am at the time. Next up then we have first shot recoil multiplier done with a sniper rifle. Now you may laugh because sniper rifles, well, first shot recoil multiplier doesn't really matter. It's always 1, isn't it? Yes, but if the bayonet would actually increase the first shot recoil multiplier of any weapon, it would happen to a sniper rifle. Well, an increase of 1 to something like 1.5 would be noticeable on the recoil pattern even of a sniper rifle, and because of the higher optics, the sniper rifles allow for a very easy comparison of the two, and as you should be able to see in the slow motion of this test, there is no difference between the height of the optic climbing, the maximum height the optic climbs after the shot being fired, the maximum amount of recoil between these two. These have been fired at the same lamppost, on the same map, in the same server, from the exact same spot to make sure that the optic has the same kind of target, same target distance, to make sure if it travels some distance upwards in relation to its target, it will be the exact same for both weapons. One, of course, on the left with the bayonet, the one on the right without the bayonet. No visible difference, at least not to my eyes. Next up then, we have aiming down sight. Now, one in standing and one from sprinting. Supposedly, the sprinting was supposed to be some form of difference between the aim down sight because of the weight of the bayonet. But in both cases, as I think you'll see from the clips being shown right now, there is no visible difference between the time taken to aim down sight with or without a bayonet. Now, I may be missing something obvious here. My testing may in some form be flawed, and I do not want to at this point call anybody out on making false claims about the effects of the bayonet. But I do want to state, as far as I know, the bayonet does not have any drawbacks to the actual performance of your weapon. The only drawbacks that can occur is in using it wrongly. And well, that is where it leads us nicely into, of course, the usage of the bayonet and how to make the best use of it. What you shouldn't be doing is using the bayonet to charge into an enemy group, unless you are trying, of course, to suicide, because that is guaranteed suicide. What you should be using the bayonet to do is take out single targets, preferably from behind, or of course some form of special unit, be that the flamethrower, the machine gun, the anti-tank infantry unit, whatever it may be. They have an increased health and are very difficult to take down unless you have a bunch of grenades or are multiple players focusing on this one guy without dying. Stabbing them from behind is an easy way to get rid of them. Another way to use the bayonet, of course, effectively is to get from cover and cover, and we covered this as well. What you shouldn't use this for, though, is trying to get to a place faster. That is to say, not trying to get behind cover, but for example, to get to an objective faster before your enemy team. Because as the clip that you will be seeing right now shows you, if you sprint and then fire up your bayonet charge and then have to walk the remaining distance, you will actually be slower than somebody who just flat out sprinted the whole way. The reason for this, of course, is after you've used your bayonet, you will be slower for a short period of time before you regain your strength and can start sprinting normally again. As such, don't use the bayonet charge as mode of transport, instead just to get between cover if you find yourself in a life-threatening situation. So on what guns and with what classes should we use the bayonet? Well, there's two ways to answer this. In my test results, you should be using a bayonet on every single weapon you can equip it of, because there's no negative drawbacks. It just gives you more choice and ways to kill your enemies or get to cover if you're in trouble. In the case that you would accept other people's results or so-called findings on what supposedly the bayonet does, then you shouldn't be using this attachment on weapons for medium range. Now, I say medium range specifically because aiming down sight speed is of course not quite as important in Battlefield 1 for close quarter because of the excellent hipfire of the assault SMGs. It is, however, important for medium to long range. However, in long range, you do not find yourself ADS speed being too important to taking out targets for a sniper. Usually you find your target, you aim down sight, you take your time to figure out exactly where you're going to place your shot, and then you fire, unless you're quick scoping people across half the map. And that's why I say medium range. If you would take the account that recoil increase would be difficult, this would also be a lot more applicable for medium range instead of close quarters, where you shouldn't be having trouble controlling recoil because of course your target is right in front of you. So this is to say, if you would accept the common notion that the bayonets increase recoil and ADS time. According to my results, though, it doesn't, and as such, I would recommend all you guys out there to use the bayonet on all weapons you can equip it. Now, with that being said, that wraps it up on my findings on the bayonet. Now, I'd like to apologize at this point for the video being late. It was supposed to come out, of course, on Thursday, but it's come out today on Friday. This is partially because of workload and also because I'm sick, which undoubtedly you could hear. And that is the second point of my apology. At this point, my voice is, of course, a little bit crap today, but there's nothing I could do other than not producing a video at all. And I'm sure that wouldn't have satisfied you guys out there either. So with that being said, I'd like to thank you very much for watching. Leave your comments, opinions, and experiences with the Bayonet down below, and I'll see you hopefully in the next Battlefield 1 video.